Welcome to another episode of the Cozy Cottage Crochet podcast. My name is Hannah. This is Nova, and this is a podcast all about crochet, a little bit of knitting, sometimes sewing, and generally living the yarniest life possible in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I live. Can you say hi? No, I'm too busy. Oh, we wave with one hand. Oh, what a skill. She's too busy chewing on a light bulb, apparently. If you're looking for me anywhere on the interweb, you can find me as the Cozy Cottage Crochet on Instagram. Also, I have an email address set up for this podcast specifically. It is thecozycottagecrochet@gmail.com. If you have anything to say about the podcast, questions, comments, concerns, please email me. That is the best way to get a hold of me and ensure I read your message. I try to get back to everyone on Instagram, but I feel like things keep disappearing. Like, I'm pretty sure someone gave me a really sweet long message after the last episode, and I saw it and then it wasn't there when I went back. So if that was you, I'm really sorry. I saw it. I just don't know where it went. Instagram keeps glitching out on me. So email is always the best way to get a hold of me. Also, we have a cal running. It is the Love Your Stash cal until the end of March. And the only rule is that the yarn or fiber had to have entered your stash before January 1st of 2022. So anything that was in your stash before then is eligible, including your whips, because your whips are part of your stash. I have made absolutely zero progress on my project for the Love Your Stash cal, which is the Skyrim cardigan. Haven't touched it in the last 2 weeks, but maybe that will change. Who knows? There's no craft type rules. You can knit, you can crochet, you can tat, you can weave, you can spin, you can cross stitch, you can embroider, you can do anything you want. You can macrame, as long as it's some kind of fiber craft. No, what are you doing? Are you gonna talk to the people? Wow! Nova, can you say banana? Can you say banana? That's how she says banana. Nanana. Can you say mama? Mama. Can you say dada? Yes. Can you say bird? Nova. You say bird? Last night she was trying really hard to say potato and obviously cannot. I would go potato and she would go just like that. Potato. What does a dog say? Woof woof. Can you? Oh, so much. Yes. What does a lion say? My husband taught her that one. Do you have anything to say about crafts that you would like to add to the interweb? No, you just want to go sideways? Okay, can you wave goodbye to your adoring fans so we can go night-night? You say bye-bye. You're too busy eating a light bulb? How did you make it blink like that? Okay, I'll be back. I'm back. The baby is sleeping. It's about 9:10, which means I have about 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes to get this podcast done. We can do it, right? We can do it. Positive vibes. I let her have 10 minutes of complete silence, didn't make any noise whatsoever, in the hopes that she will go to sleep and stay asleep while I record this podcast. As we know, last time she spent the whole time screaming and didn't nap. So, but today when I was rocking her, she's actually snuggled me, which she very rarely does. She's not a snuggler, which makes me eternally sad, but she's not a snuggler. But she actually laid her head on me and calmly sat there for a few minutes, and then she sat up and pointed at her crib, and I was like, oh, you ready to go night-night? And she went like this. Bye, get out of here. So that I think is a good sign too, I hope. So I have worked on 3 projects in the last 2 weeks, and one of them only had 10 minutes of work. But hey, if it gets 1 stitch put on it, it's going in the podcast. So essentially I worked on 2 pairs of socks and the crochet belong wrap, which I'm going to save the wrap for last because I'm almost finished with it. That has gotten almost all of my time. So I don't have all kinds of projects to show you like I would like to, like I used to, but I have dedicated some time and had a little bit of time to work, and it's felt really, really good. I am wearing, this is a crochet cardigan called the Angela wrap. It is by Vicky Chan, a pattern. I have made 3 of her cardigans. I think I've made all of the ones of hers that I want to make currently, unless she comes out with new ones. But I love, love, love her style. I love her cardigans. I've made the Chelsea cardigan and the Ariana cardigan, and this is the Angela cardigan, which is miles of mesh stitch. I made this in Loops and Threads wool-like, and I'm thinking about reblocking it because I haven't worn it in a while, over a year. Yeah, probably like over a year, because I really haven't worn anything since Nova's been born, because she just tends to like yank it. And I know that won't last forever, but I think she's kind of at the point now where I could start wearing something like this again without her picking it apart. So because I haven't worn it in so long, it's like, oh, it's kind of like shrunk up a little bit. It's like right in the middle of my butt, which I'm not a huge fan of. I want it to kind of be down there. But Loops and Threads wool-like is an acrylic nylon blend, and it's super, super affordable. I love this yarn. I've made a cardigan, a sweater. I made a cardigan, a sweater, a shawl, 2 shawls. I've made a lot of stuff in this yarn, and I really like it. But because of that, it's very like bouncy. Like, you see how stretchy this is? So I think I need to re-steam block it to maybe get a little more length in the back, but I just love it. Like, it's breathable. And one of the things I like using acrylic yarn for is things that are breathable, because acrylic doesn't breathe because it's made out of plastic. Not that there's anything wrong with using acrylic yarn. It's just in Florida, it's really, really hot. So I love that this cardigan in particular is made out of acrylic yarn because it has all of these holes, so it has lots of airflow. So it's a lot cooler than it would be if it were a solid panel. I'm drinking a little bit of green tea today. I didn't sleep very well. I slept pretty well the night before last, but not last night. I just was like hyped. Like any little sound woke me up. And so I need a little help today, but also trying to be careful in the caffeine. So just green tea that just has a little teeny bit of caffeine to kind of put a little pep in my step. I really love Harney & Sons green tea, and they make these green tea bags that are like gigantic, and you essentially boil like 2 cups of water. You put this giant bag in, you let it steep for like 10 minutes, and then you pour a bunch of cold water in. It's just so good. It's like a blueberry green tea. So good. So, let's talk socks. I have finished a pair of socks. Mind blowing. I know. I have finished the sock blank socks. They're done. Let me tell you about the yarn. This is a sock blank that was a lovely gift from my friend Lisa. This is the yarn dyer. The colorway is Coral Cove, and it's a sock blank made out of 75% merino, 25% nylon, 460 yards per 100 grams. This is how much I have left. So I want to say half the sock blank. That's a fair amount. Now, I did make shorty socks, so of course it's not going to use the whole thing. And it's just been really interesting to see how this works out. And I was on the heel of the second sock the last time we talked. It's like halfway through the heel, perhaps. And I just decided that I was going to work on it just a little bit every single day until I finished it, a little bit after Nova went to bed, even if that was like 15 minutes. And of course, there's some days that I still couldn't do that, but I worked on it, I want to say every day for like 5 or 6 days in a row and finished it. So this is sock number 1. This is the first one that was finished. So this is the beginning of the sock blank. I worked cuff down all the way to the toe. This is sock number 2. If I can hold these. So right where this ends, this one picks up, and this is through the second half of the sock blank. So you can see that this sock is actually much lighter, much more muted than this one. These are like related cousins, not twins. And I typically love to have my socks match exactly, but these are very, very similar. And I find that when it's a colorway like this and not stripes, it bothers me much less than when it's like, this doesn't bother me that it's not exactly matching. If this were striped and it didn't match, that would really irritate me, like on a molecular level. So yeah, I knit my socks 1 at a time. I have never done 2 at a time, and I honestly have no desire to do so because I don't really like working on magic loop. I cast on 64 stitches using a 2.25 millimeter needle. I use my ChowGoo 9-inch circular needles. I work 15 for my shorty socks. I work 15 rounds of ribbing. Then I do 15 rounds of stockinette. Then I have been recently doing the Shadow Wrap Heel by Denise, who is Earth Tones Girl. And then I knit approximately 5.5 inches of foot. And then I do Mina's rounded toe from Mina's 2 at a Time sock recipe. And Mina is the knitting expert. So that is like my perfect vanilla sock recipe at the moment. And I'm loving it. If I make tall socks, I typically knit from the cuff to 6 inches. And then I do the heel. So yeah, I'm excited to have a new pair of socks. I have not washed these yet. And one thing I'll say about sock blanks, as opposed to knitting from a regular skein of yarn, is that you're gonna have, your gauge may change a little bit and your fabric is definitely gonna be a little bumpy because the sock blank is pre-knitted. So if you've ever just knit from a regular skein or crocheted from a regular skein and then you unravel and it's like that spaghetti, that's essentially what you're knitting from. So that can affect your gauge. And it doesn't look too bad, honestly, but like, there's definitely some texture to this because they haven't been blocked. Let me see if I can. It shows up more. You see how bumpy that is? It definitely shows up more when it's off the sock blocker and not stretched out, but that will kind of disappear once the socks are washed. I am going to just throw these in the wash because that's what I do for all of my socks. I cannot be bothered to hand wash socks. Definitely not. They go in the washer, in the dryer, and if the yarn can't survive that, I always only knit socks in superwash. If the yarn can't survive that, then it's not worth it to me to make socks out of because I just don't have time. And I used to even be the person that would like split loads of laundry into like lights and darks. And I still split into like towels and jeans and like heavier clothes and like lighter clothes. Like I'm not gonna wash my t-shirts with my towels. However, since having a baby, I do laundry all the time, literally all the time. And I can't, I don't have time. Everything just goes in one load. And that's just the stage of my life that I'm at. Sorry to any moms / grandmas that are like greatly offended by my laundry doing at the moment, but that's what it takes to survive. So I do not have time and I cannot be bothered to hand wash socks. But let me show you what has happened to a pair of my socks. I brought them here to specifically show you. These are a pair of Knit Picks Felici socks that I knit a while ago, pre-Nova, I'm pretty sure. And I have worn them a bunch of times. They've been washed a bunch of times. And then just recently, they felted. I have worked with tons of Knit Picks Felici, and I don't know if maybe I hit the wrong setting on my washing machine because normally I wash on like warm and then cold. And maybe I hit hot or something. But they felted, and then they got washed. I managed to wear them, and then they got washed again, and then they felted more. So I don't know, like, I don't know what happened because I've never had that happen to a pair of Felici socks before. I'm going to put one on a sock blocker, and you're going to see what I mean. You can see that it's felted just from looking at it. I'll show you the difference. You see how there is very little stitch definition? Also, the sock has shrunk. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with these. Maybe make a Christmas ornament out of it or something. Oh. So as you can see, all of this on top of it, it's like, it has no give whatsoever. Oh. And then I'm pulling it and I'm hearing it like rip. I don't think you can hear that on the screen, but let me put this on a sock blocker and show you the comparison. Because I went to put these on, I put them on in the dark. I grabbed them out of my drawer, put them on in the dark, and I was like, why are they so tight on my feet? And I was like yanking on them and stretching them out. I didn't even make it through the night with them on my foot. I like took them off. And then the next morning I looked at them and I was like, I don't understand. Like why, these are superwash, I don't understand. And then I really looked at them and I was like, oh my gosh, they felted. So I tossed them in the wash to see if it would get better or worse. It definitely got worse. So yeah. As you can see, I'm going to put these next to each other. Yes, this is the biggest difference. So, I'm telling you it's smaller. Look at how much it shrank. This used to be up there. Is that insane? Like, so the whole sock, it's stretched on the sock blocker right now, so they look like they're the same size. They are not. Because this is like an inch below Like basically the whole ribbing disappeared because these socks were knit. This does have a fish lips kiss heel, but these were knit in the same pattern. So 15 rounds of ribbing, 15 rounds of stockinette, heel, 5.5 inches, Nina's rounded toe. The heel also is here on this sock blocker, whereas this heel is over here. So you can see the heel right here. It's way lower than this one. Yeah, that's crazy. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with these socks. This is the first pair of socks I've ever had act like this. Act a fool, these socks. In the washing machine. I've never had Knit Picks Felici do this. You can just like, it looks like that wouldn't even fit anyone, right? It's not stretchy. Let's compare off the sock blockers. If I can get them lined up. Oh yes. This is where the heel ends on the ones I just made. This is where the heel ends on the ones that are felted. Much smaller. And if I line this side up, you can see that overall it has shrunk around. And knitting stretches sideways, whereas crochet stretches, knitting stretches horizontally. Crochet stretches vertically. So these have a little bit of vertical stretch. Almost no. I don't know what I'm gonna do with these. I think I need to make Christmas ornaments, or maybe I can get some googly eyes and stuff it, because I don't think any stuffing's gonna come out of there, honestly. Maybe I'll wash them again in really hot water, see if I can get them to felt even a little bit more. Put some googly eyes and stuff it and like tie it off at the bottom or something and like make a little puppet for Nova. I don't know. Do you have suggestions on what to do with a pair of accidentally felted socks? I really liked these too. I'm kind of annoyed. I guess I need to make sure, mom brain, I guess. This is the first thing I've accidentally felted. But also, it's Knit Picks Felici. It shouldn't, right? Who knows? That is the tale of woe of these sad felted socks. And a tale of happiness for these finished sock blank socks. It was really, really interesting to work with a sock blank. I'm just excited that I had the opportunity to do that. I've never worked with a sock blank before. It was really, really fun. And I'm really excited to have a finished object as well, because it's been a while. It's been a while, y'all. So yeah, the other pair of socks that I worked on, I just got a teeny tiny bit done. It's living in this bag right here. And these are kind of my travel bag socks. So they're in my big red mom bag that goes with me to church and goes with me to weddings and things like that. So I very rarely get a chance to work on these, but if I'm stuck somewhere, as long as I have my giant bag, I have something to do. So I did in fact get a little bit done on this week. And these pair of socks are Sauberball Crazy Yarn in the colorway Fliederdurft, which is like, I don't know, sunflower, lavender, something. Someone told me what it was. I don't remember. I believe this is 75-25. Yes, 75% wool, 25% nylon. And this is a 2-ply. So what that means, putting on my teaching hat for a second. What that means is there are 2 strands of yarn that are twisted together to make one bigger strand of yarn that I am now knitting with. And you can actually see it at kind of barber poles. Right now it's a light purple and a light blue. A lot of sock yarn is 4-ply, meaning there's 4 strands that are twisted together. You can have 5-ply, 6-ply, 8-ply. Over like in the UK, something like 4-ply would be sock yarn usually. So it will go by that classification, whereas in America, it often goes by worsted or bulky or sport weight classifications. So 2-ply makes this kind of yarn. It kind of barber poles. That's how the colors are changing. 3-ply makes a really, really plump sock yarn. Really, really beautiful stitch definition because it's kind of like a triangle with the 3 strands twisted together instead of just 2. And then 4-ply, of course, is pretty round as well. So that is how Sauberball yarn works. It comes in a non-repeating, so these socks will also not be identical. The colorway just does whatever it wants. So this is an example of a tall sock. I've got 15 rounds of 2x2 ribbing, and then I knit all the way down till I had 6 inches total from the top of the cuff to where I would start the heel, and then I started the heel. This also is the, what am I trying to say? Shadow wrap heel by Denise, who is Earthhome's girl. And so what I have done is almost the second half of the heel. So last time you saw this, I don't even remember when that was. The first half of the heel was done in like one row. So with the little bit of time that I had, I knit almost the second half of the heel. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 more rows back and forth. So 8 more rows of the heel, 8 more short rows before I start going around in circles again. And I imagine I'll get more progress on this once that happens. So yeah, I really like that sock. It's a very slow progress, but that doesn't bother me on this one because it's just there to make sure that I have something to do. I'm not in a hurry on that one. And now, time for the crochet project. I thought for a minute I was gonna have this actually finished by today, and I probably would have, except that on Wednesday nights I don't have any yarn time, even if Nova goes to bed delightfully, because I have small group. So she goes to bed at 7. I frantically get the house ready for people to come over. And then at 7:30, we have small group until like 9. It's supposed to be 9, but it's normally like 9:30 before everyone leaves. And then I go straight to bed. So I didn't get any stitches on this yesterday. It is living in this giant bag. There's stuff to the gills. That was a gift from my friend Lisa. And also it has a Claudia Crochet Luna pin on it that says it's crafting season, because it is. And what is living in here is my Belong wrap. And I am in the 6th and final color, and I have exciting things to tell you. So let me get all of these little guys out. I am using a 5.5mm hook on this, and yarn for this was so generously provided as yarn support by Eden, who is Eden Spun Yarn. I'm going to link her shop down below, but stick with me for a minute before you go check out her shop, because I have something really special to share with you. So she just really got my vision on this wrap. This wrap is inspired by, I've called it the Belong wrap, and it was inspired by someone, a dear friend, who never felt like she belonged in her biological family, and then later found out why she felt that way. And also inspired kind of by my vocation, which is I'm a pastor of a small inclusive church that is like specifically inclusive and affirming of the LGBT plus community. I am not a member of the LGBT plus community, but it's very important to me to provide a space where all people can be celebrated. And that extends to this podcast. But like, it's really big in my heart. Even more so since I've had a baby. Like, I just feel very like mama bear towards anyone who's being excluded for any reason, or made to feel as though they're not good enough. Like, that really upsets me. And so when I was thinking about this pattern, I wanted it to have the 6 colors of the rainbow to represent inclusion, but it doesn't necessarily only represent LGBT inclusion, because the person that it was inspired by also is not a member of that community. They just never felt like they belonged. And that really like hit me. And so when I was talking with Eden about this, she really understood my vision. And so all these colorways are like not only so saturated and beautiful, but named beautiful things. So I'm gonna try to do them in order. I have little bitty nuggets left of each one. So the red is the colorway I'm Loved. And yellow, wait, let's see, red. How does it start? Yeah, it starts with red, right? How does the rainbow work? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, right? Yes. So red is I'm Loved. Yellow is You're a Star. Orange, actually, yes. Red, orange, yellow, that's how it goes. So I'm Loved. Orange is Wildflower. Yellow is You're a Star. Then we have green, which is Not Different, Unique. And this actually is what's left of my swatch. Always save your swatch, people, because I did have to I needed this swatch for about 1 row. Green, and then blue is Be Yourself. And I am on, put all those down because I'm gonna drop them. I'm on the final color and my favorite color, which is this purple, and the colorway is Not Alone. I also have this teeny tiny nugget of blue that was also part of the swatch. I'll show you the swatch. I had to unravel part of it so that I could get some green because I almost ran out. Are you ready? I'm so excited about this. I really thought I was gonna have this done, but it's pretty close. So I'm gonna start at the beginning. This is a wrap and it is on the bias, meaning somebody messaged me about asking what that meant, and that is the message that I lost. So if you are the person who messaged me on Instagram asking about yarn patterns on the bias, this is your answer. I'm sorry I couldn't get back to you on Instagram. Your message has disappeared. So on the bias means you're working sideways. You're not going straight up and down, essentially. So instead of having a wrap going like this, you're kind of, it's askew, you're going like this. So if in fabric, if you would think you lay out a big piece of fabric, the threads are perpendicular. So because fabric is woven, pretty much all fabric is woven, whether it's thread, cotton thread, bigger thread, it doesn't matter. So you have threads going this way and threads going this way. So if you're going straight up, that's with the grain of the fabric. Meaning like if I made a little incision on a regular piece of fabric going straight up, I could then just rip it all the way up because it will give. It is made to go that way. But if you are going on the bias, it means that you are going diagonally across the stitches like this. This is something you have to do on purpose, especially in sewing. If you cut something on the bias by accident in sewing, it could like cause your whole garment to be askew. But if you know what you're doing and like the pattern calls for that, then it's worth it. In crochet, what this means is instead of crochet, we're still crocheting back and forth, but instead of crocheting perpendicular like this, the actual thing we are making is going to the side like this. So if I hold it up, it's still going to look straight. Let me just hold it up so I can show you. The stitches themselves are straight, but only if I hold them this way. Does that make sense? So you can see that it's going sideways. If I hold it like this, it is still straight up and down, but you can see that it comes to a point down there. So work on the bias in crochet and knitting means you're going this way. And usually that involves increasing on one side, the same side continually, and decreasing on the other side. So you can continue that pattern going this way. So the way that it works is you have this, I started at the red and we did this, I did a solid panel. And so I'm just continuing all the way up to increase on one side and decrease on the other in pattern. And I'll show you. So we have some ribbing and then we have like a solid panel texture. So you kind of have to work out where or how this is going. Like, if you're hearing noise, my husband's making coffee. This is real life. So this would be the decrease side and this would be the increase side that you're seeing. And you have to work out in pattern. What you have to be careful of when you're working on the bias is, especially in crochet, is crochet stretches vertically. So this wrap is going to stretch this way much more than it stretches this way. And these stitches on the edge are really important to not be tight. It's really important for stitches not to be tight in general on the edge in crochet. You don't want them so loose that there's holes, but you don't want them so tight that you don't have any give in your garment, because when this is blocked, the garment can, or the wrap can only grow as much room as the stitches give it. So if I'm really tight here, then this only is going to stretch like a couple millimeters and it's going to pull the whole garment in. So you can see that this is kind of curling in like this. That's totally fine. That's going to happen anytime you're working something on the bias like that. It will block out. But if you notice when you're crocheting that instead of it just curling like that, your garment starting to go like this, it's starting to fold in on itself more than just a curl of the edge, but the actual thing is being pulled in, your stitches are too tight. You need to go back and rip them out and do looser. So like, for example, on this pattern, my edge stitch is, I have just a chain 1, but there will be a note in there saying if that is too tight, if your garment is like crumpling in on itself, then you need to either do chain 2 or perhaps you need to do a much looser chain. And I really have made an effort to make my edge stitches looser on this because I crochet very tightly. So yeah, so we have red. That was a long explanation of what on the bias is, but hopefully you found that helpful. So we have the red one, we have orange, we have yellow, and this is where I was last time. right where this stitch marker is. So since the last time you saw this wrap, I have done the rest of the yellow, all of the green, all of the blue, and most of the purple. Let's see how many rows I have in purple. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18. I have 6 more rows to do in purple before the final ribbing. Maybe I can get that done tonight. It's possible. I think that I'm all tangled up here. I am. This is like wrapped around my foot. You can't see this, but I'm like sitting crisscross applesauce on the couch. So I don't think that I can get this whole thing in the screen at once, but like this maybe. So it's really, really vibrant. I am almost done with it, and then I will weave in my ends, and then I will give it a soak and a block. Blocking this is going to be tricky. Not because I don't have enough blocking mats, but because I have a baby. And I don't know where to put it exactly. Normally I block things on our king size bed or like in the guest room / my husband's office where he works on that bed. There's a queen size bed in there, but this is going to be longer than that. So I really don't know where I'm going to put this. And then it will be done. And then of course I still have to write the pattern and take photos, which is a whole other thing I'm going to talk about in a minute. The reason I have been working so much on this is, one, because it's a very intuitive and mindless kind of project once you get going. I don't have to look at a pattern. I don't have to, like, see this curl. This curl is normal, what I'm showing you. If you're working on the bias, that's normal. So if that's happening to you, totally fine. It's when it's going like really, really tight and the whole thing is starting to lean that you have a problem. The reason I wanted to get this finished is because my church's 2-year anniversary of existing is technically March 1st, but our party for it is on March 6th, the first Sunday in March. And we have big dreams of where I like want the church to go. I don't have any desire to run like a mega church or a machine or anything like that, but I would love for us eventually to have our own physical like commercial lease location where we can just leave our stuff set up, where we can use the space during the week, because right now we only rent space on Sunday mornings, and that's the only time we have access to the building. And I have like this dream of having a little office where I can meet people, and having this hanging in the office, like on full display, so that anyone who walks in knows that it's a safe space immediately. Especially, it's especially important to me because church is typically not a safe space for a lot of people. So I was like, I really want to show this on March 6th and use it to like talk about this dream that I have of us having some kind of a permanent location. And another crazy dream I have is like for there not to just be one little office in there for me only, but to have a space that maybe like a counselor could work out of. So we could have like an in-house counselor. I would even love someday to like have the money to provide a salary to a mental health professional, and then just give their services away for free to the church community. And I know, of course, there would be more demand than there would be supply, but it's like a dream of mine to be able to provide counseling and mental health services to people who really need it. That's not expensive, or like at least at a very reduced price. So yeah, dreams. So I really wanted to get this finished so that I could have it for March 6th, and I'm on track to do that. That is why this piece has gotten all of the love in the last 2 weeks. And let me tell you, this is the part where I said don't go to Eden's shop yet, because I need to tell you something special and important. So she has kits for these in her shop. You can get this exact set You can go ahead and buy it. You can do whatever you want with the yarn. You don't have to wait for my pattern. I do not know when this pattern will be coming out. So I had a discussion with her and she was like, do you want me to wait? And I don't want her to wait. I want you to have access to the yarn immediately because I don't know legitimately when this pattern will be coming out. It could be a while and I don't want you to miss out. You can get all 6 colors. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. She has them listed in her Etsy shop, which is linked below, for $100 for 6. That is a great price. But on top of that, she has offered a discount code, which I'm gonna put on the screen. It is Cozy Cottage Crochet. It is valid in her shop only on this one set. If you can't use it on like everything, just on the 6 skein set, that will give you 20% off, which means for 6 skeins of DK weight yarn in these colors, it's $80 plus shipping. That's like less than $15 a skein for hand-dyed yarn. Unheard of deals. So go directly below, use the link. If she sells out, I imagine she would be happy to dye more. You just have to message her, take that up with her. And I believe, so this is a DK set, obviously. This is DK weight yarn. But if you wanted this in a fingering weight or another type of yarn to make a different project with, not a wrap, say you want a rainbow sweater or something like that, I believe that you can choose your own base. So if you wanted 6 skeins of fingering weight yarn, the price may be different, but you can put that in there as well. So definitely go support her, because it's just like a beautiful thing to me. And also just thank you so much, Eden, for providing yarn support for this pattern, for getting the vision that I really had in my heart of belonging and like making all of these beautiful colorway names and also dyeing all of this beautiful yarn. It's just making me so happy. So I'm going to put that up there where it can be delightful. And now we shall chat. So what I have 2 things to chat about. One is I have found a counselor, which I'll talk about in a second. I'm really excited. If you were here in the last episode, I talked about that briefly. The first thing I want to talk about though is patterns, because I haven't had any time. And I keep saying this every episode. I'm like, I haven't had any time to work on the crochet patterns. I have had a little bit of time to work on the actual crocheting, but I haven't had any mental space. I haven't had any actual time when I also have had mental space or have not been working on my actual job to focus on pattern writing. And I have quite a few patterns in the pipeline. I have the Omega blanket that is done. The pattern is written. I just have to make photos of it. I have the DK version of the granny stripe cardigan that yarn support was so generously provided by Shella, who is unique with fiber. I've also linked her shop below. Just amazing yarn that she dyes. I of course have this belong wrap. I have the obsidian cardigan that has not seen the light of day in quite a long time. I have the Queerly Beloved cowl, which we're coming up on 2 years that pattern has been in the works. And I keep saying, like, someday when I get childcare, I'm gonna sit down, because it's got cabled hearts that just were a mind bender. And I even sent that pattern to testing and it came back like the way that it's written is so confusing, which happens sometimes as a designer. And so I really need to do a complete overhaul on that pattern and rework the hearts entirely and make a new pattern sample, and I haven't had time. And there's a couple other patterns that are just like in my box that have like either been swatched for or just like they're an idea and they're not happening. And I feel like it upsets me that this is the case. One, because I really like doing this. I really like being creative. I really like putting, like, this is a way for me to put love out into the world, is by crochet patterns. And the other part that upsets me is people like Shella and Eden have provided yarn support, which they did not have to do. And I feel like I'm letting people down when I don't then produce a pattern quickly. And I also feel like I'm letting you guys down a little bit because I show you these things and you get excited, and then it's 6 months before the pattern comes out. And that's all hard for me to process and I understand that's my internal thoughts. Like, that's not necessarily what y'all are thinking, but that's what I'm thinking is like, I really need to get this done. And I just don't have the capacity to do it. And that doesn't mean tomorrow I won't be like, oh, I have capacity to do it and I'm doing it. But the chances are unlikely right now. Like, I'm stretched pretty thin with having a baby around me full time and working full time. And this week, I'm going to thankfully get a bit of a break in March, I think. But I am officiating 5 weddings this week. That's insane. And of course, it's like part of the hustle, right? So I officiate weddings for a local like beach wedding company here. It just helps us because it doesn't pay like a ton of money. It's like $125 a wedding because I just show up and do the wedding and I go home. So minus taxes, it's like, I don't know, $90 or something. But it's something that I need to do so that we can pay our bills. We can pay our bills, I think, without it, but it gives us a little bit of breathing room. Like, for example, in the last couple of weeks, the car broke. The shifter on my husband's car, the cable popped. And so that was like several $100s to fix. And it was paid for because I had done these weddings. So in March, I think maybe I have 1 wedding to do. But in February, I've done like 5 this week. So plus a wedding from my own church. Plus, I want to say I've done like 9 or 10 weddings. Probably, I think 8 total plus 1 from my church. So that's a lot. And there is no downtime. So all of that to say, I'm not telling you this so that you feel sorry for me. I'm saying this because it's the reality of what's going on in my life right now. That I can't find time to work on patterns because there isn't any time to work on patterns. It's not happening. And I would like to say that it will change in March because I don't have as many weddings to officiate. However, not this week, but next week on March 7th, I'm getting surgery on my tooth. Oh, last podcast episode, I said I'm getting surgery tomorrow on my tooth. That actually got rescheduled because I showed up in the morning and they were like, oh yeah, we're going over all this stuff. And they were telling me it's like apparently a pretty serious surgery, like almost like getting a wisdom tooth out, like that level. And I did not understand that. Maybe I didn't understand or they didn't explain it as well the first time. And so he's like, oh, you're not doing anything. And I was like, actually, I am doing something. First of all, I'm preaching on Sunday. That's a day and a half away. But also, I'm officiating a wedding the next day for people in my church. And I was like, will I be able to speak? And he's like, well, you might have some bruising on your face. You're going to be swollen and you'll probably be drooling. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I'll be drooling? That is not attractive and also not acceptable. Like, these are people that I know and love dearly, and I have been scheduled to do their wedding for over a year, so that can't happen. So the doctor was like, I don't normally try to talk people out of getting procedures done, but I really don't think you should get this done today. So we rescheduled it for a Monday afternoon. So Monday, March 7th is when I'm getting the procedure done. And because apparently it's like really intense, I had my husband take the next day off of work so I can just not have to worry about the baby that day. And I'm really, really thankful about that. So that's going to take over part of my March is this whole tooth situation. And then the very next week I have a doctor's appointment to get my hormones checked by my OB. So I just don't foresee any openings in my mental space or in my actual physical time. And that really is upsetting to me. However, I hope that y'all can forgive that because I'm just trying to make it. And I'll still, of course, be here every 2 weeks podcasting. I just may not have, I just can't seem to keep up with the time schedule of pattern writing, which is really hard. It makes me really sad, but I have to kind of let that guilt go, I think, and just, it'll be there. The pattern writing will be there when I have space for it. and hopefully y'all still be excited about the patterns then, even if it's like 6 months from now before something gets released. And if like the pattern writing is how I support this podcast specifically, like shipping costs and all of that. So if you want more, you can always join my Patreon community for as low as $2 a month. And that is how I'm supporting the podcast in the meantime while I'm not releasing patterns. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about that other than it's like disappointing. And also I guess I just have to let it go for this season of my life right now. Like just let it go. And then when I have time, I'll have time. And when I don't have time, I'll just make for the joy of it. And hopefully that's enough. I don't know. The other thing is I talked at length last time about how I felt like I needed to talk to someone because of my anxiety. It's like keeping me up at night again, which is not acceptable in my life. Like I already don't get enough sleep, so I need to sleep when I'm sleeping. And I found one, and what a frustrating process. Oh my word. I am so thankful at the moment that my issue is anxiety and not depression, because if I were having trouble like getting motivated to like get out of bed or like do basic things, I for sure would have given up on this process. There are plenty of counselors around, but finding one that specializes in postpartum mental health, has kids of their own, sees people in person, and takes insurance, which is Cigna, is almost impossible. Let me tell you what the process has been like. So there's a website called Postpartum Support International. I'm putting this out there as a resource for y'all. If you know anyone who is struggling as a parent, they just had a baby, they had a baby 2 years ago. Either they're having anxiety, depression, they feel alone, they feel overwhelmed, go to postpartumsupportinternational.net or just Google Postpartum Support International. It is a resource all over the country for therapists, and they also have like an online support group that you can join that meets every single week at different times. That's completely free, and they have a bunch of therapists listed. Of the therapists that were listed, they only had 2 that said they took Cigna, my insurance. So I messaged one, and I'm not really sure she's in practice anymore. She never got back to me, and I couldn't find anything about her in like Google on St. Pete. So I tried that person. And then I reached out to the other person that said they took Cigna, but when I went on their personal website, it said they don't take insurance at all. And in the meantime of doing this, like I had reached out to the support coordinators. So there's support coordinators that are all over the country for Postpartum Support International that will try to find you help. And she totally could have found me someone like immediately if I wanted to do telehealth, but I don't. I specifically do not want to do telehealth. Not that I have anything against it. The last time I saw counseling after my miscarriage in 2019, I started in person, but then the pandemic. So we went to telehealth, and that was completely fine. The reason I don't want to do telehealth right now is 1, I need a space away from my house to exist for an hour. And also, I have a very, very difficult time speaking up for what I need and what's bothering me when I'm face to face with someone. So it's really much easier for me to talk to a camera or to talk on the phone to someone or to talk to like a Zoom meeting than it is for me to talk to the person who's directly in front of me. When someone is directly in front of me and asking me what's going on, I am so likely to like minimize it, brush it off, be like, oh no, I'm surviving. It's not a big deal. Like to do stuff like that. So I know that I need practice, and that is an area that I need more support in, is like being more vocal in person. So I need someone who's in person. So she could have found me someone telehealth like pretty immediately, because there's people all over the country that take Cigna and do that. So that kind of route was a dead end. I also was on the phone with Cigna like, hey, you have all these search terms. I'm like, counselors in Pinellas County. That's the county where I live. It pulled up like hundreds of people. And I'm like, I don't know which of these people, do any of them specialize in postpartum mental health? Because there's not a search option on the website. And so I called Cigna. I've been on the phone with them multiple times. And they were like, oh yeah, that's not a search term that we have, so we can't tell you. And I'm like, you don't have a list anywhere of providers who specialize in postpartum health. You can't search it. You can't help me at all. And they were like, no, what we recommend is that you use a third-party search engine like Google. And I was like, y'all, you're killing me right now. Like, you're supposed to be like, and I even told the guy, I'm like, I know it's not your fault, but this is a massive oversight, and I want you to pass this up the chain. That like, postpartum mental health is crucially important, and I'm going to stick with this and find someone because I need it. But like, also, for the love of God, like, can you imagine trying to navigate this process with a 2-month-old? Get out of here. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, I tried to like work on it for a little bit every other day. So I went first through the Signal website, and I had this like long list of people, and I would like click on them and see if their main treatment areas were like addictions or substance abuse, and I crossed them off the list. So I found like a list of people who might potentially, and I would like try to Google them. But what ended up happening, I had a list of like 5 or 6 people that like I thought maybe might have experience. They either had like parenting or like some kind of related word. None of them had postpartum, but some kind of related word that I could track like that. So I was about to start like calling one at a time and being like, do you do this? And do you see people in person? But what ended up happening was the person that I had messaged off of Postpartum International got back to me, and they were like, we don't take Cigna. However, I personally know this other therapist who's in St. Pete who takes Cigna and who has experience working with postpartum parents. And I was like, oh, thank you. You did not have to do that. Like, I'm not a client of yours. Like, thank you so much. So I reached out to that person. She got back to me the next day, and I have an appointment scheduled with her on March 7th before my tooth surgery. So that should be a very high anxiety day. But she has 2 kids of her own. She specializes, or at least has a special practice area of postpartum health. She sees people in person. And she's a pastor's kid. So she completely understands the struggle of like church life and faith life and all of that. And I think it will be a really good fit. And she told me, she was like, so just so you know, you need to call your insurance, because typically the insurance will pay for a certain number of sessions at 100% before you start having to pay your copay. And I knew that in terms of like when I was working in insurance myself, in auto insurance, there was like a thing where you could get 3 free sessions a year. But I thought that was only for the employee, and I'm on my husband's insurance. And she was like, oh no, like ask them, because it should apply to you too. And so when I talked to them, I called them back again, and they were like, oh yeah, you do have 3 sessions covered at 100%, and here's an authorization code to give your provider. And first of all, that is delightful. But second of all, I have been on the phone with y'all like 4 times, and you couldn't mention that a single time, that there were 3 completely covered sessions. You only talked about the copay. So annoying. So it is a process, let me tell you. That's just why I said at the beginning, I'm so glad that like depression is not my issue currently, because I would not have stuck with this. Like it's just too much. But I think I found someone. I'm very excited. So excited? I don't know if that's the right word. Relieved. And I will see her in about a week and a half. So that's pretty good. And it won't cost me anything at all for the first 3 sessions. And then it will be $45 of a Cigna copay. And I think I'm gonna like tell her this when I meet her in person the first time. Most of the postpartum mental health specialists in St. Petersburg that were recommended by like people in the moms group that I belong to, they seem wonderful, but none of them take insurance. And I completely understand why, because insurance is a giant pain in the butt. However, I'm so grateful that the person that I found takes insurance, because it's just out of reach for me. It's not possible. We don't have the resources to pay $100 or $150 a visit or more. It's not possible. So I'm so grateful for people who do take insurance, counselors that do take insurance and deal with the insurance companies, even though I'm sure it's a giant headache for them, because they're making care and support possible for people who otherwise can't get it. So if you're in any kind of space where you feel overwhelmed, like, please check Postpartum Support International. Please share that resource with anyone. And then also, don't give up. If you are having a really hard time finding a counselor that your insurance will take, don't give up. Go to the list online, like, set a goal to be like, okay, I'm going to look up 3 names in Google today from their list and see if any of them can help me. And if any of them work, like, call them and ask them. And don't settle for something that doesn't give you what you need. So I did talk to one other counselor who I kind of was keeping in my back pocket, essentially, like, because she didn't have postpartum specialty, a little bit of experience, but not any kind of training in postpartum. And she does not have kids of her own, but she was like private pay, but she's doing her clinical hours. So I think it was like $60 a session instead of 100 or more. And I was like, okay, like, if I can't find anyone else, like, at least I know I have that. Something is better than nothing. But also, I wasn't prepared at that point to be like, there's no one who can meet my requirements of being able to see me in person and like understanding what it's like by having kids of your own. So all of this is very rambly, and I really have got to stop talking because the baby's gonna be up any second. But just don't give up. If you need that support, if you have insurance, please know that apparently you could have up to 6 sessions free potentially in some insurances. You probably get at least 3 sessions completely paid for. And then depending on your plan, you may have a copay that's much more manageable than out-of-pocket care. And there's no shame in talking to someone and seeking support in an area that you need help in. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm kind of looking forward to it, actually. I feel like I have a lot to get off my chest. So I do have to go. My gosh, I can't believe I've been talking for 53 minutes when I only had 3 projects and 2 of them were socks. So I will see you in 2 weeks. Hopefully, I am getting mouth surgery that week. So there's a possibility, if something like is still really painful, that I may wait another week. But I mean, that's 3 days afterwards. So I think I should be okay. 2 talk shouldn't be a problem. He said normally 3 days is the max, and that's like 3.5. So I should be fine. But I will see you soon. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. Y'all mean the world to me in general, and especially since Nova has come along. Oh no, I'm not crying. I haven't cried at all this episode. I'm not gonna start now at the very end. Just know that you all mean a lot to me, and my patron community means a lot to me. Like, they have been so supportive, and I just appreciate you for being here. And if you like this rambling, then you can give this episode a thumbs up. That tells me, and it tells YouTube that, like, I'm doing something worthwhile, and like recommends it to more people. And you can also subscribe. I would love it if you subscribed. And then you will be notified when new episodes appear on this channel, which is once every 2 weeks on Saturday mornings. So until I see you again, happy crafting, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, friends.